ADHD reWired, episode 441. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD reWired. We are here for our July live Q&A. We are joined by MJ Siemens of ADHD Diversified. Hey, MJ.
Hi, everybody.
We got Coach Kristen Martz. How's it going, Kristen?
Doing great.
We got Coach Kat Hoyer. How you doing, Kat?
Binder and frog hair split three ways.
We have Will Curb, host of Hacking Your ADHD.
Hey there. Glad to be here.
And Lisa Ciesla, my executive assistant, community manager, and our neurotypical extraordinaire.
Hi, everyone.
She might be neurotypical, but she's definitely weird. And we have our VIP here asking our very first question, Daniel. So let's get you unmuted there, Daniel, and go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. Okay. So my question is about coaching. I'm just trying to, look into that and seeing whether I'm doing a bunch of things, trying to figure out what's the best program, what makes one different than the other. But my question is, what does it take for coaching to succeed? And how does one have to approach it for, to ensure, or if not 100% ensure, but to, increase the chances that it's going to be successful? And then in contrast, in what scenarios do you find that coaching is not successful? Again, is the way someone approaches it? Is it not following through? Or I don't know, what makes it work or not work? That's the question.
I think one of the most important parts of what makes coaching successful starts with coming in with a growth mindset. Even when something is hard or challenging or confusing, being aware of those sort of automatic thoughts that say things like, oh, I can't do this, right? So if we add that word yet to that thought, then we're kind of moving in towards that growth mindset. Any kind of coaching program or relationship is that. It is a relationship, whether it's a program like our coaching and accountability groups or working with a one-on-one coach. And the relationship matters, right? And, part of what makes relationships work is also a willingness to be vulnerable. And this is true for any relationship. And so I think also coming in with a open mindset and really leaning into the process and giving feedback to the coach that you're working with if stuff is not working for you, or if you're struggling, share that you're struggling. But I think that feeling, that sense of belonging, and I think we tend to know pretty quickly if we feel like we're being seen and understood versus being judged and misunderstood, because we're all way too familiar with that experience. So we can kind of suss that out pretty quickly. But yeah, it's definitely being fully committed. It's coaching isn't something that is done to you. It is a process that you are engaging in. And while I'm clearly biased on what the best program is, I would definitely like to say ADHD reWired's coaching and accountability groups. But partially it's because I've seen the track record. I've been doing these groups since 2014. Right, we've had almost 900 people now go through this program. So we have a pretty good track record of kind of what works, what doesn't. And we just have a great community. And that's a huge part, especially with ADHD. Being a part of community is really one of the most, I think, important tools that we can have in our toolbox.
What does work mean?
What does work mean in what regard?
Say that, you said that hey, you have a good track record, it works. What's the measurement of success?
Oh, great question. So I look at what the works mean is you have a better view of self, a better understanding of self and how you navigate with how the intersection of your life and your ADHD intersects with every aspect of your life. One of the things that I will often tell people coming into our coaching program is, it's great to have some ideas about what you want to, what you're hoping to accomplish and focus on in group, and stay open, because the things that often people will say is that the things that they thought they needed to work on were actually significantly different what they realized they needed to work on once they were engaging in the process of coaching. I would like to ask my other coaches what they think about this one. Rock, paper, scissors. Kristen, go first.
A lot of what you said is what I agree with. I think of it in terms of other types of dynamic helping relationships too. And that one big key piece was knowing if the being seen and heard is there, and then advocating for yourself, standing up for yourself, and doing that quickly. I'm also a mental health therapist, and if a client doesn't step forward soon, the therapist doesn't know. The coach won't know. You have to let them know. Don't feel like this is the right fit. A lot of things that activities we do that has a dual relationship or a group relationship, if you don't feel it, whatever it is, it's not going to work. You want to be all in. And if you're not feeling all in, that's not going to work anyway. And I would like to personally promote the idea of the way this group is run, because it's a group dynamic with coaching, which is lots of different perspectives and minds coming together, and that the feeling of commonalities that makes it so different than a one-on-one type dynamic.
Thanks, Kristen. Kat?
I definitely echo all the things you've said so far. The first thing I wrote was lean in. I think that's the absolute most important, in understanding that it isn't a quick fix. I think any type of coaching program is going to be something that you need to put some work into, and it's a good program, in my opinion, will also give you tools that will carry on, that you can continue to work on and kind of evolve with those tools. In terms of the actual program, again, echo what you said. What I put down was you got to vibe with the person. You've got to feel like you resonate. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to receive the information that they're giving you. Make sure that it's somebody you respect. And again, it's like a job. You want to make sure that you're interviewing that coach and program just as much as they are you. I think also knowing, it was funny, Eric, just as you were saying, going in with something, like kind of being flexible with knowing what your objective is. I was writing down, know your objective. So I think that probably matters a little bit more if you're looking at one-on-one coaching versus group coaching. The group coaching, in my opinion, is probably the most powerful for ADHD. I've been a coach for years, and I've had all kinds of different, I've done one-on-one, I've done individual and group. And for ADHD specifically, I think that it's the most powerful because of so often feeling alone. And you asked the question, what would make someone not successful in it? And I think that comes to not being ready for it. And that doesn't just mean like being vulnerable, not being ready to be vulnerable, but also being in a place with your own mental health, your own coming to terms with things that life has thrown our way, and just knowing that any type of coaching is going to push you. And you need to be ready for that, and know that if there are deeper issues, that would be more for therapy versus coaching.
Yeah, and I think that if you find that when you're facing something that's hard or challenging, if your tendency is to completely shut down, that's a good indicator of trauma. And that is something I would highly encourage you to first work with a kind of therapist that can help you with that, and then come do the work with coaching, right? Because if you're doing a good program, it's going to push you out of your comfort zone. It's going to challenge you, because that's where growth happens. It happens out of our comfort zone. If it's easy and it's comfortable, like, that's not what's going to help you grow. MJ?
Okay, so I'm not a coach, but I'm one of the admin or one of the peer mentors in the coaching groups. And from somebody who is constantly being a coachee and somebody who enjoys supporting others, the thing that I've observed that seems to bring the most success for somebody as a coach and the people who are being coached is really having a curious mind and continuing to learn to ask higher quality questions. I was almost going to use the right or wrong questions, but even that's subjective. So the higher quality questions we ask for ourselves and towards others, the higher quality solutions we'll get. And I think really being like accepting that knowing some of the answers we have or some of the answers that you might get may not be the one size fits all option for everyone. So, being okay with being challenged in some aspects of when you are asking the questions. I want to echo something that Kat said, we need to be okay with ourselves on our best days and on our worst days, because it's not going to be, happy-go-lucky the whole time, I think. Also understanding that there's going to be stumbles. As somebody who kind of wants to model what that looks like to show up as the best version of my worst self, being really forgiving that I'm not going to be perfect, and being forgiving that the people you are coaching are not going to be perfect. Something that I like to say is perfectionism is the thief of joy, the thief of growth, the thief of progress, and really just building trust, because it's not until you have that trust that everything that I just said before can really happen. So that's my point of view coming from not a coach. I hope that helps.
Thanks, MJ. We had a follow-up question here too from John. How does coaching interact with traditional therapy? I think if you have the bandwidth to do both, I think it could be great. That's often the biggest barrier, is having the bandwidth to be able to do both. But if you are able to, it can be a really wonderful partnership for getting your life on track, right? I mean, we tend to love to dive into stuff, what a great way for a period of time, whether it's a couple months or what, to dive into coaching and therapy together. If you're really looking to do some intense personal growth work, it could be great. While group coaching, it's coaching, it's not therapy. It is very therapeutic, and it can be really helpful to actually have a therapist to kind of do more of that sort of emotional processing with, because it'll bring stuff up. It's going to stir stuff up that you maybe didn't even realize was a thing, right? And so it can be really, really helpful to have a good therapist in conjunction when you're doing something like this. So Daniel, was that helpful for you?
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, you bet. All right, we got Lily.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for all the work you do for this podcast. It's greatly appreciated. I'm wondering, what is the chance that there might be a grant out there to cover potential business expenses if I'm trying to build my YouTube channel and have just call it what it is, the disability of ADHD, but doesn't seem to be listed on any of my Google searches. Seems like you need to be physically incapable of working or something other than, do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, is there possibly a grant out there that it can be for people with ADHD?
I don't know. Does anybody else know? Kat?
Yeah, I can jump on this. I'm assuming it might be a little tough to find one, but I would look specifically for neurodiversity or neurodivergent. I think more so than looking ADHD specific, that would be a place that I would definitely start. And that is a great question. And everything in me right now wants to Google it and go down that rabbit hole.
I will be checking it. Both know. I appreciate it. I had never even thought of using those terms. This is why we are having this great podcast. Yay.
And I just from a general term, I know that there's a lot of grant money out there that so many people don't even know about. So it's an issue of just doing the research for it.
Yeah, I will let you guys know, and then I'll let someone else take the air now. Thank you.
Lily, this is Kristen. I wanted to add too, as part of my master's programming in school for my MSW. Sorry, I feel like I'm tripping over my words. I did do an online class about grant writing. And one of the things that happened from that is I feel like forever on an email list of when grants are put out there and they're seeking people to, apply for those grants. So maybe searching for some of those, I don't know if it's like a warehouse or or something like that, where you can get on that list and be sent those. And there was probably like checking, ticking off the boxes of the kinds I'm interested in. And mine would be on the other end. And when I search for them, it's for putting together programs for neurodiversity or autism or anxiety based with children. So I never thought about the flip. I would also maybe look to network with your small business. I'm not thinking of the right
small
term
business
for
administration.
it. Yes. I think really start networking. You might find some of those grants, because grants are just put out there by individuals and companies and people who have money and want to do this, and they have a certain target that they want to make. So a lot of it is having those conversations. Have a conversation with someone in the store you bump into. I do it. I just do it naturally, though. I can talk to a wall. So, but a lot of times I make connections in a grocery store.
I totally hear you. Networking happens everywhere. And thanks to Kat also. I just had a store wars. So, wow, Power Team, this is fabulous. Thank you all. I'm scribbling like crazy. Whether I can read it later is another thing. My brain tends to spit things out an hour later. So, yay.
Awesome. Well, good luck.
You can re-listen to the podcast, and good luck.
And Lily, I'd love to invite you to come back to next month, the Q&A, and update us if you've made some progress on this.
Woohoo! You got it.
Thanks so much. It's a great question. All right, let's go for another question here. Lisa, what do we got?
Angela is joining us.
All right, Angela, what is your question?
Hi, this is my first time at one of these seminars. I just discovered ADHD reWired very recently, just looking for networking within the neurodiverse community. My question was, if there's any tips or advice on like finding more adult acquaintances, not, strictly to ADD, but like post-graduation of university. In my last 4 years of college, I came to learn about the movement of neurodiversity while having more acceptance of my condition, but also just the societal aspect to it, and finding other classmates within it, just being more honest and candid about our struggles while also, trying to break down the stigma. Now, I wanted to see if there's any tips or advice on how to find more acquaintances like that, but now in this different phase of life of, us pursuing careers in the work environment, business and networking, just if there's any advice in that regard.
All right. So one thing that I think is we probably have all experienced, it is harder to make friends as adults, right? I mean, think about this as when we were kids and college, it's like there's same aged peers everywhere, right? And then we get into our own sort of silos in life after school, and it's harder. It's just harder. There's a lot of online communities. I'm not sure if you're looking for in person or online.
Either or. I'm actually have been having trouble. Anything that I've found was just very empty or like hadn't been updated in quite a while. So
it's probably because it's run by someone with ADHD. Okay, so obviously I'm going to share sort of some of the ADHD reWired resources first. So there is actually this every month. We also have our free Facebook group. We have our Adult Study Hall community, which is it's a membership community for virtual co-working. We have our coaching and accountability groups. So there's a whole alumni membership community that's involved in the coaching and accountability groups as well. So there's a lot of different things that we do as an organization that is very community-based. I mean, everything we do is really community-based. I know that also ADA has resources for adult ADHD, and they have some virtual support groups there as well. Will, what do you got?
So just the looking at the theory behind how we make friends is it's just like repeated social interactions. The biggest key is just doing things where you're going to have the social friction where you're like, this is why we made so many friends. We all had to be there and we saw them every day. So it just kind of happened. And for a lot of our adult life, we don't have those things outside of work. So it's finding clubs and online places that we can just regularly go to. And that's how you make friends, because it's just, for whatever reason, we don't like the idea of intentionally going out to make friends. It feels artificial, which is weird and just how we are. But if we just go and do hey, I'm going to be going to this thing every week, I will meet people there who are like me, because people with neurodivergency tend to attract other people that are neurodivergent. Looking at my friend group from high school, I'm like, wow, kind of that's who I made friends with. And it's just, trying to find the social friction to create friends is the biggest key to doing this. It's finding something you enjoy and going there frequently.
Yeah, looking at like meetup.com for local interests.
Oh, trust me, I have, and I've come up very short.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just like something within my area. I'm in the Long Island, New York area. So, or like within Manhattan and New York, I really, surprisingly.
Yeah, that is surprising.
Of all the things that you can meet up for in Manhattan, neurodiversity seems to be coming up short.
What I'm saying though too is not just looking for neurodivergent people. It's looking for things like with common interests, and you will find the neurodivergent people in those groups. We just tend to find each other. Like find who's arriving late or who's the last to leave. Those are going to be your neurodivergent folks, probably.
You got a point.
Kristen?
I always like to remember the libraries. The libraries have those communication boards and the connecting pieces. That's where you might find leisure art classes for adults in different areas. And maybe, you don't just want to be friends because you think alike. You want to enjoy some things together too. And so if you find a catalog for adult leisure art learning, maybe you could learn an instrument or take a dance class or learn woodworking or something like that. That might be an area to kind of start to mingle. And maybe you'll make a really good friend who's not that neurodivergent either. And that's a win in itself. My son and daughter are both, at that age where my son still has a year in college, but it's hard to make friends. And it has not even anything to do with being neurodivergent. So it's just to give you those feels out there for everyone. The other thing I was thinking of is volunteering. A lot of theater places need people backstage. Other places where you can volunteer that maybe you have an interest in, where you can meet some new people.
Thank you. I'll have to look into that.
Kat, do you have anything else?
I had to laugh when I heard meetup because I went to an ADHD meetup group and it was just about ready to expire. So they were looking for somebody to start heading it up. And I looked through the comments. There were a lot of people upset because they're like, I've been there and nobody showed up, or they showed up late. And I'm like, but wait, this is an ADHD group. How could you be mad about that? So I tried to take it over. This was many years ago and it still went under. But I would say a couple of different things. One is if you do have any type of support group, I met a lot of people initially in my area. There was a local coach who was running a support group. So I met a lot of people that way. The other thing is you can start your own. So if you're looking for some type of a meetup, you can start your own. And I think this is where this one might be slightly unpopular, but I'm gonna mention it. My mastermind, when I went through the coaching program initially, as a member, my mastermind was on friendships. I really struggled not just making them, but also keeping them. I felt like I was going to disappoint people. So I had just a lot of hangups around it. I have since really examined my definition of friendship. And one of the things I've noticed is in the ADHD world, our friendships tend to be very transient because of the fact that we, do sort of out of sight, out of mind, forget about each other. And the beauty is when we come back together, we're very forgiving of that usually. I would really look at what it is you're looking for in a friendship, because for me, I wanted the Gail and Oprah friendship. And then I'm like, wait, maybe I need to redefine what it is I'm looking for. So if you're looking for people just to go out with, if you're looking for that, close, somebody that I can confide in, but that would be, I think, a place to start, and some acceptance around the fact that we can sometimes be hard to be friends with. Not you, us, all of us. Yes, all of us.
Thank you. I definitely do have, my own group of friends back from high school and back from college I'm still in contact with now. There's no ratio of who's neurotypical or who's ND. Just piggyback off of what Will said earlier. We tend to attract one another. But I do have, my own friends. I do have my own interests, that there's plenty of groups for, I major, I'm an artist, and also I'm into journalism. But yeah, just really specifically would be within the business world or anyone else, entrepreneurial, if, that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Great.
And it would not be an ADHD reWired podcast if I didn't suggest pickleball as a way to meet people.
Pickleball.
Yes.
Okay. I'll have to
Look it up.
I gotcha. All right.
Kristen, and then we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, I was just going to say quickly, because Angela added this, maybe I heard it better at the end, the part about the entrepreneurial piece. I would imagine that is much more difficult to scope out and identify because so many people don't want to disclose.
Oh, no, absolutely.
So maybe looking at it from a different perspective and finding ways to label some things, like we're going to do our monthly luncheon and trying to call it something a little different. Our creatives luncheon. A lot of times you get creatives involved. They might have some neurodivergency going on, and maybe something like that within the entrepreneurial area, if that could happen.
Awesome. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a bunch more questions. I think we're going to start with one around daily planning because the structure can feel too restrictive. This was a question that was upvoted a bunch of times. So we're going to start with that one when we come back from the break. So we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ADHD Rewired's award-winning coaching and accountability groups. Learn more at coachingrewired.com. We are getting closer and closer to our fall season of coaching groups, and registration is still open. If you want to invest in your personal growth, discover where your time is really being spent, set healthier boundaries, and begin reducing your daily overwhelm, all while learning beside other adults with ADHD who just get it, then this is the coaching community you've been looking for.
Before this group, I doubted my ability to grow.
I came to the group feeling stuck.
I was diagnosed as a child and I knew how to handle it as a kid, but I never matured and figured out how to handle ADHD as an adult and what it means to be an adult with ADHD.
What I've accomplished in 10 weeks, I didn't do it alone. I did it with all of you. I did it with my A team. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. The results so far for me have been really positive in the sense that I do believe that I can live without fear.
You realize that trying to find better tools isn't really just the only solution. It's finding a community, finding people, and finding support, and learning how to ask for help and learning how to give help better. I think that really helps make a difference.
The thing that I learned was I have a place in this world.
They just taught me to be compassionate with myself and to say, hey, this is a process.
Everyone in the group who's talked about their issue, we all then become invested in wanting to see them grow, and by proxy, wanting to see ourselves grow.
I can continue to learn and relearn the techniques that have been shared with me here and continue to receive the support that I've gotten here, which I also didn't know I needed, but I'm so grateful for.
I came in expecting to get a tool belt and then I'd take those tools and go with me, but I feel like more of a different person who has tools that I can use. So thank you, all of you, for such a wonderful experience.
My parting wish is that you would each see the incredible beauty within you.
I really appreciate everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Every season, our members remind us that we can do hard things and we don't have to do them alone. To join our fall season of coaching and accountability groups, go now to coachingrewired.com, where you can still take advantage of saving $200 when you join us this week on August 11th for our next registration event. And keep listening for additional registration events in the evening so you'll still have a chance to join us at a time that fits your schedule. Go to coachingrewired.com to get your name on our interest list to stay up to date on upcoming registration events and see which dates still let you take advantage of our fall incentives when you register for either Coach Kat or Coach Kristen's groups. Deadline to submit pre-registration submissions is at 11:59 p.m. Central Time the day before our registration events. Go to coachingrewired.com to get started with your pre-registration process. If you want to get curious, uncover your time blind spots to become more time-wise, have your calendar reflect what matters most to you, and take your ADHD management to the next level, then join us. Get added to our fall interest list and take advantage of saving $200 when you sign up for one of Coach Kat's or Coach Kristen's sections at this week's registration event on Thursday, August 11th by going to coachingrewired.com. You're also registering people for my section as well. All the details are at coachingrewired.com. Come grow with us. The first step is at coachingrewired.com. And we are back. All right, so let's start with a question from Mark, who says, I know scheduling helps, but when I make a daily plan, I feel the structure is too restrictive and I rarely stick to it. Any tips? Yes, lots of them. Will, go ahead.
I'm just going to say that it's a false narrative there that it's too restrictive. Having freedom to do anything is way more restrictive, because then we are constantly being like, I can do anything, and then we do nothing, and it's awful.
So true.
When we're planning our day, we get to choose what we want to do with our time. Whereas when we don't plan our day, it's often our day gets chosen for us by events.
Yes. Our calendars, these aren't contracts. What's on our to-do list is not a legal agreement. These are just placeholders for your future self. So you don't have to keep the things that you're wanting to do in mind, because we have CRS. Can't remember shit. So don't try to keep that stuff in mind. Use our calendar, use your to-dos to capture the things that you want to do that's not in this very moment. And when that moment comes, you can make a choice. You can say, all right, I either am going to do this, or maybe I'm going to do this later because I want to do this other thing. Even though I've, marked off time to do this later on, I'm going to move for doing it now. That's okay. You could do that. You can also choose to not do something that is on your calendar or your to-do list. You don't have to do everything that you said you wanted to do. Like, circumstances can change. When we look at our calendars as a tool that is structured by time and day that allows us to organize our goals. I mean, that's really what it is. And it gives us that framework. It gives us those parameters. If you use a paper calendar, make sure you're writing in something that's erasable, right? There's no awards, given for doing the Sunday puzzle and pen, right? Use eraser, use erasable pen. Or if you're using an online calendar, you can move stuff. I move stuff on my calendar all the time. A lot of the things that I have time blocked on my calendar are placeholders. So I might know a certain activity might take me about an hour, and I'll put it, say, at 10 a.m., and I might not actually get it till 2 p.m., right? That's all right. I think we just have to sort of let go of this narrative that if something is on the calendar or on our to-do list and we didn't do it, that we failed. Like, no. Priorities change. We have to be able to be sort of agile to that. Kat?
Actually, was just going to say there, and I saw it in the chat here, that we tend to plan about 3 times more than what is actually reachable. And that's what I would say, it can be restrictive if we're over planning. And I know I've been guilty of that in the past, where I want to plan every second. I want to make sure that everything is, that I'm getting all these things done. And then I feel a lot of resistance to it and kind of rebel against that. So what I found works best for me for planning in general, is to have time blocks. I have like little chunks of time that I do different activities in. So in the morning, I've got my morning routine chunked out into different things that I do. And depending on how much time I have, some of it's just to keep me alive and my animal alive and my other human alive. The other things are maybe I don't have to do. And I actually name those some really fun names. I used to call them phases, and I had a typo and I accidentally typed party. So now I call them parties.
How do you get party from phases?
I don't know. I don't think it was an accident, but maybe I don't know. I think it might have been like a Freudian finger slip. I don't know. But now I call them like my dog and cat party and, my closing time party. And I have music that plays for each one, but I make it a lot of fun. So, but I highly recommend chunking and not over planning.
Yeah, it's amazing that, when it comes to our optimism, we tend to put it in the wrong places. Like, yeah, totally, I can get 10 things done today. So when we realize how long things actually take, we do spend a lot of time in our coaching groups with this sort of time tracking. And so we can actually have a better understanding, because all of the things that we can put on our calendar and our to-do list, like if we don't have a sense of how long things actually take us, we're going to be overbooked and overwhelmed, right? Will?
Yeah, along with the having fun and partying thing there, also just plan straight leisure activity. Like a lot of the time we go, I'm planning, so it has to be like the highest value thing on my to-do list. And sometimes that's kind of true, but also you should value leisure time more, giving yourself breaks, doing things that you enjoy. Like being productive is about having the time to do the things that you want to do. So make sure you're doing the things you want to do. Like if you want to do puzzles or play video games, or put that on your calendar and keep that in your daily plan. So you get to do those things, because part of the reason we get off our plan is because we're like, I'm just doing everything I hate and this is awful. So don't do that then. Put things you want to do.
It's like going to the doctor and say, it hurts when I do this. And the doctor says, well, then don't do that. MJ?
So when I read this question, when I see the word restrictive, I'm sensing like a little bit of perfectionism and maybe a little bit of anxiety in there, because I used to be the one that overplans. Like every 15 minutes of the day, it was just like, what was I doing? And at a time, that method of time blocking every 15 minutes of my day served me. But, when it comes to if we're having an off day, an off week, or an off month, it's not necessarily that it needs to be restrictive, but sort of sitting with those feelings that come up when we are feeling squirrely and feeling like we are restricting ourselves. Because like Will said, it is a false narrative for me, especially like that I have to stick to my plan. It's not carved in stone. We have the freedom to move things around as we need. And even though I don't always follow my plan anymore, and I've become okay with not following my plan to a T anymore through a lot of just inner reflection and being really mindful and journaling about the feelings that come up when I'm feeling like I can't stick to it, is if it's there, at least it's a guide that I can come back to if I'm feeling lost. I've really had to practice, like, it's not set in stone. I'm not failing if I don't stick to this minute that I was supposed to transition to the next thing. It's meant to be my guide to help me get back on track if I'm, just feeling a little bit lost. And my future self always thanks my past self for doing that. So I hope that helps.
Kristen?
I jokingly put in the chat the one where you said, schedule every moment of your day. It reminds me of the Sheldon Cooper version from Big Bang Theory, yet he makes sure to schedule his bio tasks. And so if you are a scheduler like that, you need to be putting that in there because you need room for that. Then thinking of maybe, I'm like queen of reframe. I love reframing. I love the naming. And not even just naming, but maybe changing the wording of it. Instead of it calling it restricting, what if you called it, it's embracing you? It's what's holding you and helping you be accountable for the things you need to do and that sort of thing. A member gave me a tip a long time ago about renaming a room that I'm challenged with cleaning. And when she did that, I was like, oh, you're right. Now I want to go nurture that room. I don't hate that room anymore. I don't mind going in there. So it's all about what's in your head too, along with making those changes. I think it's really necessary to have that sort of piece to it. I think also there's the challenge too, if you got a lot of deadlines, maybe start making some goal planning with intention start times. And that helps you not think about but it's due. Maybe think of it as, I'm going to get started on this at 12:01. And maybe getting started on that is just thinking about the thing you got to do and allowing that to be part of the process, a piece of the process, not just the activating part.
One of the things too that we do in our coaching groups is we do this. It's called the 20x5x5. It's a planning sort of behavioral tracking approach. So it's 20 minutes of planning every day. But then that first 5 is you're checking in with it 5 times during the day. But that checking in also means moving stuff around. Think about when we use our GPS to get somewhere. We don't program the address in and then throw it in the trunk, right? Like if we miss a turn, the GPS will update it and reroute us. Unfortunately, like our calendar doesn't have that automatic tool to reroute our day. We have to do that. But that's kind of the idea. Like it is a navigation tool for our day. Like that's what our calendar is. So we don't have to keep everything in our mind. All right. I want to go to another question. This one from Pam here. What can I do to have motivation? So the answer to this one is one of these answers where it's like, it's a little bit of a bitter pill and it's doing the work. It's not waiting until the motivation comes to get motivated. It's doing the work and then the motivation comes, right? There's that, but there's also what can we do on a kind of neurobiological level. Exercise is a huge driver of dopamine, and that helps with motivation. Making sure we're sleeping, that helps with activation, which helps with then motivation. I had another thing, and I totally just fell out of my mind. So I'm going to go to Kristen.
Yes, I'm following the tail end of that too. When I learned this, I reframed it in my head, and so activation is what I need first. And so whatever I can do to activate and get the dopamine hit, then I activate it knowing I'm going to first assess as I'm starting the thing, because you truly can be unmotivated to work on that task, but you have to activate the task to know if you are unmotivated at that time. And then that's okay to set it down and say, I did it the other night. I wanted to read. I started to read and I just was like, but I did start the thing. I started, it was on my plan and I did it. And I read a paragraph and a half and I was like, I'm just not motivated to read right now. Wow, that was cool. Because I made that decision and choice and I didn't just let it sit there on my calendar and my plan and go, oh, I didn't do it today. No, I did do it. And I had thoughts about it and I measured my my motivation level.
I think too that when we're struggling with something and we have we're kind of torn between our internal dialogue saying, oh, I really want to be doing this, but like you're not doing it. That's probably not a motivation issue. Like that's an executive dysfunction issue, right? So do you actually know what the first step is, right? It is amazing how, I still struggle with this where I think I know what it is I need to do until I realize that I have no idea what I need to do, right? And so when we realize that like, oh wait, I actually don't know what the first step is, that can be a barrier. And it's not uncommon to think that we know what it is and we don't until we actually are asking ourselves those questions, right? So breaking it down to such a small increment that it almost feels easy to start.
Again, I changed my definition. I just like bend the world to meet me. So I'm like, I'm motivated to do all kinds of things. And I actually just looked it up. So motivation, the definition is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a certain way. We have all kinds of motivation. We just don't have the activation. So I think for me, that helps to go, oh no, I am motivated. I'm highly motivated. But then using all the tips that you guys mentioned, but change the definition, make it work for you.
Awesome. All right. All right. We got Tabby asking a question. How you doing, Tabby?
Well, hello. I'm actually a part of R29 right now, and this is my first Q&A with you guys. So thank you for having me. Yes. So my question today, it's how do I give myself consequences for not following through with the things that I want to do, like breaking my own rules. So I make my own rules. Like I don't want to have my phone in bed, but where do I sit when I'm just scrolling and doing nothing? In my bed. So, I try to make these rules. So here's the context. I am a parent educator and I tell parents and caregivers all day long that discipline has no efficacy if there are no consequences to follow through with them, because you can repeat yourself a million times, but until someone's action has a consequence that directly and immediately affects them, it's not going to change. You're just going to keep doing the same things because there's no result in your actions. So I've actually done something like this once before where I did have a consequence that worked.
What was it?
Okay, so this is what it was. I unfortunately picked up a vaping habit, and it wasn't like I was vaping all the time, but I would be around my buddies and I'd like, oh, let me get your vape, let me smack your vape, whatever. And it became more of a habit and I just really didn't like it. It made me feel horrid. So for battling that for a long, long time, I was like, dude, you just cannot hit nicotine. You're not allowed. And of course, willpower just exited the door every time that addiction craving hit. So I told myself, I also serve on the weekends and only once a week do I work and I get a free shift beer. And I really look forward to my free shift beer. So I told myself, if you even hit one puff of nicotine, you are not allowed to have your shift beer this Saturday. And I was like, that's a good implementation. That's cool. That works, right? Except for, with ADHD, it needs to be immediate. So that immediate gratification didn't work because I was like, well, I'll hit the vape now and by Saturday I'll forget. So I added on to my consequence. You won't be allowed to have your shift beer on Saturday, but you also have to immediately drop to the floor and do 5 push-ups, no matter where you are, no matter who you're in front of, because if you want to hit that nicotine so bad, you can embarrass yourself in public, in the movie theater, wherever you want to be, hit the deck and do 5 push-ups. And that made me stop.
I got some questions for you. So will you share with me what your definition of consequence is?
Yes. So I firmly believe that every action, no matter what, has a consequence. Consequences don't need to be negative. I logged into this Zoom meeting, and as a consequence, I'm sitting here talking to you guys. So essentially, it's just the direct result of one's action.
Yes.
And like I said, I teach this for my job, so I pretty well feel like I got it down for the most part.
This is probably why it's even more frustrating for you, because you absolutely know what you need to do.
Yes.
Right?
And it's really funny, too, because my entire job is essentially how to use your executive functions. And, I'm still really trying to figure that one out, too. But just having something to hold me accountable internally, just to have my own self say, no, you can't, because my willpower is low. My self-control is almost non-existent. And so just giving myself little tiny things to be like, you know the rules.
So, okay. So Deb, let me ask you this. If you saw somebody in a wheelchair that was looking up a flight of stairs, what would you suggest to that person?
Just looking. I don't know. I would feel pretty out of place to even say anything.
Would you maybe look around to see if there's an elevator or a ramp for them? Would you say, just climb up there? Your arms seem fine.
No, just is a horrible word.
Of course not.
Never.
Right? When we have ADHD, we have an invisible disability. And part of that, when we say that ADHD is sort of the disorder of good intentions, it's where we have a hard time bridging intentions into actions.
Yes.
That's the invisible disability.
Oh, yes.
So if that is our invisible disability, why do we think that this idea of holding ourselves accountable is something that will ever work?
Chew on that for a second. Because I guess that's the mantra of, to accept and to do is to take accountability for one's actions and to kind of, obviously it's much more than just force yourself to do it. I've been battling that for quite a while, but I find that it triggers the motivation as well. It also inhibits that impulsivity of just, it doesn't matter, just do it right now. And it's like, no, if there's a consequence, then you're going to at least be a little more inclined to stick with it. So I'm definitely fighting myself in this because I've observed my own habits in that I don't like to follow rules, nor have I ever really had rules in my life. So this is a pretty foreign concept in the
What about
grand
principles?
Scheme. What about what?
When you think of principles instead of rules.
That's a better way to look at it. It's more of like a generalized sort of like a value set.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It is because when we are doing things that are connected to our values, it's kind of like hot wiring our why.
Yeah.
Right. And when we don't have a strong connection to our why, and it's hard, the chances of us being successful with that thing are going to go down a lot.
Absolutely.
Right?
Okay.
So I think accountability is vital, but we need to be setting up accountability with somebody else. And obviously, you're in the coaching groups, so that's coming for you.
I was ready for it, and that's why I was trying to pick a question that wasn't going to be like, okay, we're going to be in the coaching groups for this reason. So I'm thinking about just the little things, even when you were just talking about the values piece, that kind of made me think of, I don't want to be on my phone in bed. And I can attribute that to kind of like a value of mindfulness is when you are doing something, you want to intentionally and fully do something. So it's like, if I'm in bed, I want to be either sleeping or, just resting, reading, something like that. So it's not all over the place. It is that value. It's the value of, okay, well, mindfully, what am I doing? What's my intention here? So I see kind of where you want to go away from the rules sort of thing. Cause again, that's kind of like a hot buzzer word, especially for us ADHD folks.
There's value to having rules though, having certain sort of, cause then you're taking decision-making out of the picture, which is decision-making is an executive function. And if we can say, all right, when I do this, for example, I have a rule that if I have a medication alarm that goes off for either myself or my son, I can't hit stop until I've given the medication. I can hit snooze, but I cannot hit stop.
Yes, I've done that very thing.
And if I accidentally hit stop, I have to stop what I'm doing and go get the medication. That's a rule. Because if I don't do that, then there's a real good chance that someone's going to miss their medication.
Right. And that's where I kind of find the consequence part, part of the thing that I teach is one of the structures says like, you can either do this, like you can either pick out your clothes for the morning or you're going to be rushed in the morning. So it's an either or. It's basically you're making a choice, but you're kind of just setting that precedent ahead of time to make the decision making easier in that moment.
Kristen, what do you got?
I loved the idea initially because of the kinesthetic cue it brings about for you. And so I saw it as toggling two behaviors. And I'm wondering, do the flip of it. As you've created your pause for yourself, go, oh, well, if I'm going to make the choice to take that puff of the vape, then I'm going to do these push-ups first and see that more as these are instructions that you've given yourself for the choice you want to make, because rules tend to feed into the mind that we don't have choices. And so I'm kind of curious about that flip of that and the thinking about how you're perceiving it. Plus because it does bring you, I'm a very kinesthetic cue person. And that helps me a whole lot.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I tell you what, I wrote it in my journal and I wrote it to myself like a contract. The way that I worded it, it literally says like, should I choose knowingly, unknowingly, under the guise of any sort of substance, should I be drunk, whatever, if I hit this vape, if I choose to, then here's my consequences. So it was under the frame of like, if I just told myself, you're not allowed, my ADHD would be like, watch me.
And if you flip that though, Tabby, then you've done the exercise piece. You might get your dopamine hit and you don't need to puff.
The exercise, I'm sure that would have been great. It was more about the embarrassment of just hitting the deck and doing push-ups because I can't really do push-ups very well.
One of the things that I'm hearing too is that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm hearing a sort of spirit of playfulness with you.
Oh, most certainly. I'm a child.
And I think that when we can sort of bring a playful spirit to these kinds of things, I think you're going to find that when it's like, I find that when we can approach hard things through a playful lens, it's a great sort of shame diminisher, right? So instead of thinking about these things in terms of consequences, how can I use play to help me do the things that I want to do?
More of a positive reinforcement.
Yeah, and just, I think anything we can do that makes it fun, weird, or like such as something that gets our brain going, well, that's different. I think whatever we call it, got to think about how it resonates and then do what works. So we're going to take one more quick break. When we come back, we're going to try to rapidly answer as many of these questions as we can. We will be right back. I don't know if you've seen lately that there's been some cool press all about body doubling and virtual body doubling and co-working. And there's a reason for that, because it works. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ADHD Rewired's Adult Study Hall. This is our virtual co-working and body doubling community at adultstudyhall.com. If you have things to do on your to-do list that you don't really feel like doing, then join me and a couple hundred adults with ADHD who right now are taking advantage of real-time accountability to get their lists from to-do to done. Your membership includes facilitated sessions to help you get motivated that we call ASH Plus, or Adult Study Hall Plus. It's plus facilitation. There are sessions for cleaning and decluttering, writing, creative work, and your most dreaded tasks. Anything career-related, or you need some weekly accountability or some check-ins, we have that too. Do you prefer working at your own pace but don't want to work alone? Your membership also includes access to our 24/7 drop-in room that we call ASH 24/7, where you can jump in, you guessed it, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Join me for our monthly Pomodoro dance party. Our next one is on August 18th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We do 50-minute work blocks with a 10-minute dance party break in between. So we have 2 50-minute work blocks and 2 10-minute dance parties. Get the blood flowing, the dopamine going, and let's get our focus on. This is the virtual co-working and body doubling community where people with ADHD are making things happen. Listen, every member here has ADHD, so we get it. From our 24/7 drop-in room to our facilitated sessions, there are plenty of ways you could take advantage of real-time accountability so you can get more done. Why not give it a try? Membership to Adult Study Hall is only $19.99 a month, and it's free for the first week. Come work with us and get those to-dos to-done. That's adultstudyhall.com. Look forward to working with you there. Support for ADHD reWired comes from you, our listeners, who tune in every week. If you enjoy this podcast and want to stay up to date with our weekly episodes, then subscribe to ADHD reWired by going to ADHDrewired.com or hitting the subscribe or follow button in your favorite podcast player. Whether you're new to ADHD reWired or you've been a long-time listener, if you want to show this podcast some love, we'd appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player so we can continue reaching more listeners with ADHD all over the world. And we have more podcasts on the ADHD reWired Podcast Network that you can check out and subscribe to, including ADHD Essentials with Brendan Mahan, Hacking Your ADHD with Will Curb, and ADHD Diversify with MJ Siemens. Find ADHD reWired in all of our shows by going to ADHDrewired.com/podcast network. Then this week, join the rest of the ADHD reWired podcast family and ADHD reWired coaches for our monthly live Q&A. Our next monthly live Q&A is today, August 9th, which is also my dad and sister's birthday. Happy birthday, both of you. Go to ADHDrewired.com/events to join us on Zoom so you can interact with panelists and other listeners live and have your ADHD related questions answered. And if you're listening to this early enough, go to ADHDrewired.com and click the events tab at the top of the page so you can join us today on August 9th. Oh, speaking of birthdays, Gibson's birthday, my son, is on the 13th. So happy birthday to Gibson as well. And anybody else who's having a birthday now or soon or later. I think ADHD, we really help extend birthday wishes through all of those belated birthday wishes. So to all of you, happy birthday. That was an unplanned tangent. And the website is ADHDrewired.com. And thanks for listening. We are back. Okay, we're going to all work on bottom lining here. So we're going to start with Tunde's question. Would love tips on building a conducive remote work environment. I live in a small home and need space from my family. Plus, the location change helps me focus better. All right, so if you are working from home, I think the first thing that I would want to know is what distracts you. Right? Like for me, I'm distracted horribly by noise and hearing other people talking. Like I don't have a chance if there's other people talking and I'm trying to study or work or do something where it requires concentration. Noise canceling headphones are a must. Maybe a sound machine to block out any other noises that you might hear. Who else has a bottom line idea of a conducive home work environment? I know MJ, you've shifted to working completely from home. Maybe you can jump in on this.
So something that actually I took it from Brendan, he mentioned it on a Q&A a while ago, was I think he's got like different colored cups for when he's doing something. So like a red cup is like, do not disturb me. And the yellow cup's like, well, you could probably come grab me, but I am in the middle of doing something. Green is just, free for all. So for example, something like doing the Q&A. My partner's not home right now. He actually had to go back to the office. So I'm here by myself. But when I am working, I have to be clear with setting boundaries so that, we're not disturbing each other when I'm in a meeting or he's in a meeting. Part of that environment, setting up that environment, I think, especially if you are not home alone, is communicating first what you need and how they can help you make the environment easier for you to work in. So communication.
And just to reiterate with what MJ was saying there too, is that we also need to just not have that potential for those distractions. Because when I'm at home and I know that my kids can come into my office at any time, I'm just not fully present in my work because my brain is prepped to have that interruption. So really, really do that work ahead of time to be like, hey, this is when I'm going to be working. if it's really important, disturb me. But if it's not, let's just wait till, write it down and let me know when I'm done. Because having that potential for interruption can be just as bad as the interruption itself.
Yeah, give someone the sort of the structure of the tool that they can, like if they have a question, they can ask that question without interrupting you. So maybe that's a dry erase board, or you'd say, if I have this thing on my door, text me a question, and maybe you have your notifications turned off. And so you're going to, see it when you're available to see it. But yeah, there's all kinds of different ways to make working from home more conducive. But if you do have other people in your home, I think it really does begin with having conversations about boundaries. And then if they violate those boundaries, immediately having a conversation about that and not caving because it's uncomfortable, right? It's so important that when you're communicating boundaries, that you're ready to respond if those boundaries get violated. All right, let's go to see what else we can answer. Let's see, Ellen says, let's see. I have recently retired from my CEO position and I'm having trouble navigating the day-to-day now. I assume that's not uncommon. The less structure you have, the more struggle we're going to have, right? I mean, when I'm in between my coaching seasons, it's a couple of weeks in between the seasons, like I often struggle more during that time because I have, several of my sort of anchors for my week are not there. I remember being in grad school and really struggling with my ADHD, and I went to a chat support group. And one of the things that the chat leader at the time said when I was overwhelmed with all these things, I don't know how to structure my day, and they're like, add something to your calendar. At the time, I was like, that makes absolutely no sense. I have too much to do. And what they were saying is like, you have to create structure, right? Because structure is actually our friend. I mean, if we think about this, I don't know about all of you, like one of the most stressful things I have to figure out is like, one, if I'm going to go out to eat, what restaurant I want to go to. Two, when I'm at the restaurant, what do I want to order? Like, it is legitimately stressful because we have so many options. I want to go to restaurants that their choices are breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And whatever the chef is cooking, that's what I want. Because that would be a lot less stressful. The more choices we have, the harder it actually is. All right, let's go to another question. We're trying to fly through some of these. Recently diagnosed 45-year-old attorney. I've been struggling with deadlines, planning, and multitasking for my whole life. Can you talk a little bit about how coaching works and what benefits people get from it? I'm very new to the world of ADHD and figuring out how my brain works. Coaching is the fast track to help you figure out how your brain works, right? I mean, that is what it is. Like in our coaching groups, like I tell people right off the bat, like we are not giving you the ADHD rewired method of getting your shit together, right? We are creating the space. We are the sandbox for you to experiment, right? Because what works for me might not work for you. And that's what's a really important thing to understand. I often think that like, oh, if I just say like, here's my secret formula for planning, I bet I can get more people to sign up for these groups. But I also know that's not going to actually be effective for most people, right? They might think it is, but what really works is experimentation and iteration. Because you're going to find the thing that works for you. And because we have ADHD, a month or two later, that thing might not be working for you anymore. So it's being ready to pivot, to be agile, and to really embrace that experimentation. And that's a huge part of what coaching does. It really helps you focus on process to do the things that you are wanting to do. MJ?
The keyword that I kind of want to point out that you said, Eric, was keyword is fast track, not a shortcut. Because when it comes to learning about ourselves, learning about our brain, learning about how our brain works, anytime that somebody tells me they've got a shortcut to something, how much are you missing in between the thing you want to find out about and the answer that either works for somebody else or the answer that works for you?
I love that.
The thing that we share in common in the coaching groups is that we all have ADHD. Eric, you've said this in our groups in the past, is that we can give you different formulas. And as much as like I've done it, I've clamored, like, just give me the answer and I will follow it and it's going to be fine. But sometimes it's not, because the issue with when we give somebody a formula is, what did you say?
Yeah, like you as an individual are the variable in that formula. So it's like the formula may or may not work because you're a variable in that formula.
Right. So fast track your learning, just learn as much as you can about your brain, about yourself, have conversations with people that also have ADHD, find people that you might relate to. Something that somebody experiences may be completely different from the way somebody else experiences that same thing. So it's really digging through and finding what works for you. Everything that's put out there for information, you can think of it all like a recipe book. If you don't like a recipe, you can take it out. And if you don't like the ingredient to a recipe, take that out and make it your own. And that's how we can really do that work to find out what is going to work for us and really getting down to why do we want a certain thing to work. That's what I got.
Yeah, because, grandma's oatmeal raisin cookies might be a good cookie, but to ruin a perfectly good cookie with raisins, swap that out with chocolate chips. You're going to have a really good cookie. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay, with that, I think it's time for lunch. So we are so looking forward to seeing everyone back here next month. We hope that you can make it back here. We hope you all got a lot of value out of this. We do this every month. So to make sure that you get those email reminders, go to our website and click on the events tab, and you can get email reminders each month for our live Q&A. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's here answering questions. I really appreciate everyone on my team. We'll get back with you next month. So before we let you go, Will, do you have a moment of dad for us?
Yeah, I've been thinking, so if you take the average person, they're, average. But really, I'd say they're mean.
Oh my God, Will. What the
hell? Every time. You're good. Amazing every time. I love it.
Been sitting on that one for a while because I'm always like, do I want to say average twice? I don't know.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, week, and month. And again, coaching groups, come check them out, coachingrewired.com. And stay weird. We'll see y'all later. This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you are a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tibbers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.